Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, I'll be cutting and sewing this cute dress that you can see on your screen. So I used 4 yards of Ankara fabric to achieve this style. In my last tutorial, we drafted out the pattern and we transferred the pattern to our fabric. In this tutorial, I'll be joining all the pieces together. So if you've not seen the pattern drafting tutorial, I'll be leaving the link in the comment section. So go ahead and watch it before you come join us on this particular one. So I went ahead to iron wording to the front piece, and this is what I have. So what I'll do now is to pin them right side facing right side. So I'm pinning the side front on the center front. If you have stay, you can go ahead and also iron stay on the fabric to strengthen your fabric. So I'll be sewing using the half an inch that I left as my stitching allowance. I'm using my chalk to mark out the half an inch. So I'll be following that shape when I'm sewing on my sewing machine. After pinning this side, I'll go ahead and pin the other side and I'll mark out the half an inch. So once I head over to my sewing machine, I'm going to sew on the lines that I have. So these are my yoke for the front. What I'll do is to just sew the neckline area, okay? That's the only part I'm going to sew, and then I'll turn it to the other side and I'll give it a good press, okay? And this is my back yoke. For the back yoke, I went ahead to turn it over using my lining piece and I added loop to one side of the back. On the other side of the yoke, I'll be sewing my button to that part. So all I did was to sew the neckline and the opening at the back, and I turned it to the right side. So I've gone ahead to sew the front pieces together, and this is what I have. So you can open up the wording area and then you iron it flat. So next thing I'll do now is to sew my yoke. I've gone ahead to sew the yoke, just the neckline area as you can see, and I turned it to the right side. So what I'll do now is to place the yoke on the main bodice, okay? So I'm going to place it like this, right side facing right side, okay? So make sure you leave about 1/4 inch on the armhole area, which you'll be using to turn your lining piece. After placing the yoke like this, I'll go ahead and stitch the yoke down, okay? So I've gone ahead to do that, and this is what I have. So the next thing I'll do now is to sew my lining piece exactly how I have sewn the main piece. So these are my lining piece. I'm going to arrange them in place like you see me doing, and I'm going to place them right sides facing right side. After doing that, I'm going to mark the same half an inch, which is my stitching allowance. I'll mark all the way down, and then I'll pin the other side to the center front, and then I'll mark my half an inch all the way to the end. I'll head over to my sewing machine and I'll sew in place, okay? So these are the two back pieces. I've gone ahead to cut out lining pieces for them, and I've sewn the yoke in place. Like I said earlier, I sewed the neckline area, the part that has the loop and the opening at the back. So I didn't sew the armhole area, the base and the shoulder area. So what I'll do now is to remove my lining piece. Okay, I'm going to remove my lining piece, and then I'm going to place the yoke right side facing right side as you can see me doing. So make sure you notch the base of the back piece, okay, so you don't mix your fabric up. Notch the base so you know it's the base. I'm going to place my yoke like this as you can see me doing, and I'll pin down. After doing that, I'll cover it up with my lining piece, and I'll also use my pin to hold everything down. Then I'm going to sew on the upper part and on the sides, leaving the base, which I'll be using to turn everything inside out. So after pinning this, I'll also go ahead and pin the other side. It is very important to notch the back pieces so you don't mix your fabric up. You can see that the up is looking like the down. So to make things easy for you, just notch the base, notch your zipper allowance so you know which goes where, okay? So I'll pin the second part of the yoke. I'm leaving half an inch on the side because I want to use it to turn my lining to the right side. So after pinning, I'll head over to my sewing machine. I'll sew on the upper part, I'll sew on the sides, and I'll turn everything inside out through the base. So I've gone ahead to sew, and this is what I have. This is what it looks like on the inside. The next thing I'll do now is to take my dart. Before taking your dart, make sure you mark out your zipper allowance. My zipper allowance is 1.5 inches. So after the 1.5 inches, I came inward by 4 inches, which is half of my nipple to nipple measurement, and I placed my tape on the shoulder. I came down by 11 inches, which is 1 inch below my nipple point, okay? So I rolled a straight line. After doing that, I took half an inch on both sides. So I'm repeating the same thing on this side. I'll go down by 11 inches. I'll connect into a straight line, and I'll take half an inch on both sides of the straight line. I'll head over to my sewing machine and take in my dart. I've also gone ahead to sew the lining piece for the front in place. So what I'll do now is to place it on the main fabric, right side facing right side. I'll use my pins to hold everything inside out, and I'll head over to my sewing machine to sew. So I'm going to sew on all sides except the base. I'll turn everything inside out through the base. So go ahead and sew, and then turn everything through the base. After sewing, guys, this is what I have. Okay, so the next thing I'll do now is to join both front and back piece together. So I've taken in the darts for the back. This is what it looks like. So I'm going to arrange the back piece on the front piece, as you can see, and then I'll first of all stitch the shoulder area before stitching the sides. To do that, I'll open up the back shoulder, as you can see, and I'm going to place the front shoulder inside. So I'm placing them lining to lining, fabric to fabric. I'll cover it up using the lining of the back, and I'll go ahead and sew. And you can also just join them together and you sew. Okay, so after sewing the shoulders in place, this is what I have. Next thing I'll do is to use my stitching allowance to sew on the sides. So my stitching allowance is 1.5 inches, so I went ahead to sew 1.5 inches on both sides, and this is what I have. So on the armhole area, I left opening about 1 inch opening, which will make it easy for me to stitch my sleeves. Okay, so this is what I have. So the next thing we'll do is to work on the sleeves. Okay, so this is my basic sleeves. I'll go ahead and open the sleeves up. We'll be working with this particular one, and I'll be using my organza as the ruffle. So I went ahead to cut out the organza into smaller pieces. What I have here is 6.5 inches. If you want the ruffle to be bigger than mine, you can do about 8.5 inches, 10.5 inches, depending on how full you want the ruffle to be. So mind you, whatever measurement you take, you are going to fold it into two. So mine is 6.5 inches, folded into two is 3¼ inch. Okay, and the length of the organza piece that I'll be gathering is 30 inches. So I have 30 inches in 3 places. Okay, that is for one sleeves. So I'll measure the base of my sleeves, and what I have is 12 inches. So I'm going to gather this 30 inches organza and make it 12 inches, so it will fit into the base of my main sleeves. So you're going to go ahead and gather, and then you pull one end of the thread to form the gathers. Just make sure it's 12 inches so it will fit the base. Not even 12 inches, 11 inches, because we'll be needing ½ inch to close up the sleeves. So I'll place this organza now. You can see the way I'm placing it upward, so the rough edges is facing me. Okay, so you leave about ½ inch, just like you see me doing, before you start sewing your organza. Okay, so as you are sewing, make sure you are arranging everything in place. Okay, you make sure everything fits into these 12 inches. So you must not use 30 inches like me. You can do more than that depending on how full you want the ruffle to be. Okay, and before you start sewing the ruffle, make sure you hem the base of your sleeves, especially if you're not using a lace like me. Okay, so after sewing the first ruffle, this is what I have. You can see that I left ½ inch on the other side. So this is how I'll be closing my sleeves. It's going to stop here. It's not going to get to the ruffle. So we have gathered one. The next thing I'll do now is to gather the second ruffle and then the third one. So for the second one, I'm going to place it exactly where the first one started, leaving the ½ inch just like I did before, and I'm going to arrange everything in place as you can see me doing. So make sure everything fits perfectly into the 11 inches. 11 inches because we are leaving ½ inch on both sides of the sleeves. So after sewing the second one, this is what I have. So we are going to gather the third one. I'm doing just 3. You can do more than 3. Okay, so this time around I'm going to put the rough edges of the ruffle inward like this so it does not show. Since this is the last one, it's going to be inside. So I'm going to sew. I'll keep arranging and I'll sew, and don't forget to leave the half an inch at the start and at the end. Okay, so I'll sew all the way. After sewing, I'm going to repeat this same process on the other sleeves. So you can decide how full you want the ruffle on your sleeves to be. I used 6.5 inches. You can decide to do more than that, you can decide to do lesser than that, but altogether I used just 1 yard of organza fabric. So I'm done sewing and this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to fix my sleeves to the main bodice. So just head over to your sewing machine and then fix the sleeves. So I'll go ahead and do that now. After fixing the sleeves, this is what I have. So the next thing we're going to do now is to cut out the fabric that we'll be using for the gathers. To do that, you are going to place your fabric on the waist area and you're going to measure all the way around. So whatever you get from this measurement, you can times it by 3, by 4, by 5, by 6, depending on how full you want the gathered area to be. So you're going to place your tape just like you see me doing, and you're going to measure all round. So the measurement I have here, I'm going to times mine by 4. Okay, so that is what I'll be using. So now you're going to determine the length of your dress. Okay, so to do that, you measure the half length. For my half length, I already have 16 inches, so I'm going to be adding 22 inches to that 16 inches because I want the length of my dress to be 38 inches. So since I have 16 inches for the upper bodice, what is left for me to complete my dress is 22 inches. So the length of the fabric I'll be cutting now is going to be 23 inches. So 23 inches because I want to use the extra half an inch for hemming allowance. Okay, so you can decide to add 2 extra inches to the length of your dress because you'll be joining the gathered part, to the upper bodice, and you will also be hemming the base of your dress. So times the measurement. This is my fabric. I timesed it by 4. You can see that I have joining on the fabric because I had to join my fabric to make it really wide. After doing that, I went ahead to gather my fabric in place using the measurement that I have on the waist line of the upper bodice. Okay, all I did was to set my sewing machine to a gather stitch. I sewed from the beginning to the end of the fabric and I pulled one end of the thread to form this gather. So this is what I have. What I'll do now is to place the gathers on the main fabric, right side facing right side, and I will sew following the shape that I have on the upper bodice. After sewing, I'll close the back, leaving my zipper allowance. Okay, so just use your pins to hold everything down and then follow the same shape you have on the upper bodice. So after doing that, I went ahead to close the back, leaving my zipper allowance open. So you're going to determine how long you want your zipper to be at the back. So that is the point you close up. Okay, so after doing that, I'll go ahead now and fix my zipper to the zipper allowance, and then I'm going to hem the base of my dress. Once you're through with that, you're going to give your dress a good press, and yeah, that is all for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like this video, leave your questions in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.